Now we are official. Hello, everybody. My name is Maria Rita Espina Bueno. I'm the Executive Director of Anjos do Brasil, a nonprofit organization to foster angel investment. I will welcome you all to the third 22 edition of Café com Homus, an initiative of Anjos do Brasil and Israel Trade and Investment, which brings big names in the Israeli innovation ecosystem to share their vision on issues related to venture capital and startups, in addition to discussing the potential of business and investments between Brazil and Israel. And why this name, Café com Homus? Brazilians love coffees, and to have a cafezinho is a way to connect and to talk here now, but I will go this year again. Someone says to me, you have to try Homus in this or that restaurant. It's the best one. Let's go together. For us, this was the best name for this event, since we aim for sharing knowledge and make connections. We are doing this meeting since last year, so Anjos do Brasil YouTube channel. Anjos do Brasil and Israel Trade and Investment has a long partnership. We organize investors' missions to Israel, events like this, and a lot of connections between entrepreneurs and investors. We are certain that there is a huge potential for business that adds value for both our countries. Today, we receive Esther Loewy, Director Impacting Partnership at Ben Gurion University of the Negev. We are really pleased to have her today. I met Esther some time ago in Israel when she was in another role in Nielsen Innovative Fund, an early stage incubator. To see the connections between all her experience in a big corporation and her job today in a university will really open our minds. To welcome and introduce our guests and talk a little bit about the work Israel Trade does, I will give you Sahi Reich, the head of the economic trade mission in São Paulo.
Pleasure to be here again with everyone. Bom dia a todos. Shalom. My name is Sahi. I'm heading the São Paulo trade mission. And as a short introduction, we are here to connect between Brazil and Israel, between the ecosystems. And we do it through different activities, from delegations that we bring from Israel to Brazil and vice versa, participating in different events, doing scouting projects, and many other different activities which are aimed to both improve the trade infrastructure between the countries and also to connect between people. We have been doing this initiative throughout COVID and after COVID, hopefully, that we can say that by now. And we are very excited also to bring another delegation together with Anjos this year. And we're looking forward to that. And with this, I will finish my own introduction and pleasure to introduce Esther Loewy, who is with us. So Esther Loewy has made an impact in the startup investment world with an approach focused on branding, communications, and creating a narrative that facilitates business, alliances, and healthy investor relations. After a successful career in corporate communications and venture capital, especially in the APAC region, Esther is now the Director of Impact Partnerships at Ben Gurion University, helping disseminate relevant research in areas such as sustainability and climate change, artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, digital health, and bioconvergence. Esther, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sahi. Thank you, Maria. Thank you all. It's really a real delight and honor to be here. So I think I'll start a little bit with one word, and that word is storytelling. What do I mean by that? Well, I've had kind of an interesting career to date, and I think the word storytelling is the word that encompasses my career track to date. It started back in 1997 when I joined a very early stage internet company in New York. So I'm American, I'm Israeli as well, and I'm speaking to you from Israel, where I made Aliyah nearly 17 years ago. But my career in terms of launching in the whole internet startup investment arena really began with this company called theglobe.com. Two 23-year-olds at their dorm at Cornell University came up with this idea, which today we're all familiar with social networks. Well, at the time, this was online community. So think social network 1.0 version, where it was unproven. No one understood what was going to be the business model. Who in their right minds would want to go online to speak to people with similar interests? Would companies pay to sponsor? It was really revolutionary, whereas today it's more evolutionary. And I joined the team, I believe I was the 9th employee, when they moved to Manhattan. And they had just received an extraordinary one-time investment of $20 million from a business person who had started Alamo Rent-A-Car and then Tucket Nectars. And he believed in these two young guys. And they brought me on to really build the story, to introduce what is this company, how are they going to make money, how are they going to attract employees, other stakeholders, investors, partners, clients. And, at the time, the only company in the industry making any kind of revenues was the pornography industry. Let's just face it, they were always ahead of the game. And additionally, that was also something we had to deal with, the crisis management, sort of explaining to, again, these prospective stakeholders, this is very much not pornography. This is a viable business. People want to connect. They want to share like-minded interests, and there's a way to generate revenues. Well, fast forward, this company grew to nearly 400 people, offices in different parts of the world, had an explosive IPO, actually it broke NASDAQ history, rose over 600% on opening day, completely unsustainable, of course, but it was a wild ride. And so when I started, one person running to 11 p.m. to the local copy machine and being a one-person, dynamo in terms of the brand and the strategy and the communications, I built a team. And we ran every part of marketing and branding. And then when we became public, investor relations, dealing with Wall Street, dealing with analysts, working with the board, etc. Now, mind you, I did not come from any financial background, and this was really experience on the job, or on the job experience, I should say, which is unlike any other. When I left that and I started my own consulting firm and even attracted my former bosses from the Globe, who went on to film production and went on to finance, I realized, I'd like to kind of firm up my background. I have my BA in political science and communications. I'd like to get some more formal business background. And so I started looking at business schools, which is in the US really sort of the next trajectory, right? You get your MBA. And in the Bloomberg Business Week ranking of schools, Kellogg School of Management is quite well known. Lesser known to me at the time was Kellogg Recanati, which is associated with Tel Aviv University. University branches in Hong Kong and Germany and North America. And so I applied and was accepted, and thus began a 2-year pilot of living in Israel, which fast forward, we'll be celebrating 17 years this summer. When I joined this MBA program, at the same time, I was actually recruited to work with one of Israel's publicly traded companies, which doesn't exist any longer. And again, the idea of building their first official formal investor relations team, working with Wall Street, building the story, what is unique, what is different, how are they going to appeal to stakeholders, really continuing that theme. When I left this company, I guess the other word that I associate with myself is an entrepreneur. And I think you might see that it doesn't matter if I wear the hat as an investor or as business development or strategic communications or what I'm doing now. I always kind of like to leave the comfort zone. I don't, when things plateau or reach to a certain level where I feel I'm not learning anymore, I go to the unknown. And some people might call me crazy. A lot of people call me crazy, actually. But that's me. And to me, I thrive on that. I think that's how you identify new opportunities. Some might work out, some not, but that's kind of who I am. I started a consulting firm designed to help Israeli technology entrepreneurs vis-a-vis the outside world, vis-a-vis, similar to engaging with people like yourselves, but mostly with institutional investors, strategic investors, commercial enterprises, because what Israel, at least in 2008, when I began this initiative, well-known, brilliant entrepreneurs in terms of the technology, more technologists, less in terms of how do you build the story, it's all about the storytelling. Of course, you need the substance, but it's not about the most amazing algorithm. It's not about the ins and outs of the technology. You'll get there at the right time. It's about how is your innovation going to make your life as the potential customer better, easier, more efficient? Why should you as an investor be part of this story? How are you going to attract talent and employees? It's all about identifying those crucial points. And so that company, Bootcamp Ventures, did that, and we worked with Israeli entrepreneurs and brought them to different parts of the world, from the U.S. to Turkey to France and Europe and to Singapore. We also started working with local entrepreneurs, and it was very interesting seeing the difference between entrepreneurs in Turkey who look to Israel as kind of the beacon to learn from, or entrepreneurs in France, as well as Israeli entrepreneurs. We had two different business units. We had these conferences where we engaged and identified these strategic entities, commercial or financial, who wanted to engage with Israeli entrepreneurs for their use cases. And we also had our deal making, sort of investment banking arm. And at the close of about 6 years, we had it was all seed stage, so very much almost similar to the angel sort of investment mandates I imagine most of your members are comfortable with. And yet about 6 years down the road, we had about 20 startups who had raised in total $50 million, which we were pretty proud of, including 2 exits. Went to Intuit, the big financial company. And then, talk about leaving your comfort zone yet again, and this will be a continuous kind of theme. In the middle of 2013, this also speaks to networks and alumni groups, I was contacted by Invest Hong Kong to help them. They were starting to launch Hong Kong as this gateway to China, as a way to do business that's so much simpler than dealing directly with China. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, and the associate director of Invest Hong Kong, which is a quasi-government institution, but he's a Kellogg alum, which is my MBA. He said, Esther, we're trying to create this Start Me Up competition. We're going to every tech hub in the world, from New York, Silicon Valley, London, Berlin, you name it, Tel Aviv. Will you help promote this first time ever? And I said, Charles, I've never been except for my 1-2 day trip to Singapore, and we had local partners. I don't know anything about Asia Pacific, don't know anything about Hong Kong or China. And yet I had built up this network of venture capitalists and seasoned angel investors and entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs who we worked with. And so I said, what have I got to lose? I did very little promotion, but sent it to some, significant number of people. And lo and behold, by December 2013, they had picked out of about 1,200 candidates, 12 finalists. Everyone was from the US or India, except for one company, which was from Israel, which was directly from my network. And so they flew the CEO out and myself to Hong Kong for 5 intensive days. And I came back and I said to myself, I think this is the way to go. I think understanding how to do business in Asia Pacific is going to be key for Israeli entrepreneurs in particular, who are so used to going, either 7 or 10 hours in one direction, East Coast, West Coast of the US, similar time spent on a plane, 10 hours to Hong Kong or Singapore or anywhere else, it's going to be really require a whole different skill set that, again, people call me crazy. Why would I start to do something like that? And Upbound Ventures was born out of this belief, which did materialize, that there is extraordinary value to being to being at the beginning of this whole phenomenon, which has become now very regular, of understanding how to do business in China, in Hong Kong, in Vietnam, in Singapore, in Thailand. I always joke that I'm not a true Israeli, although I have Israeli citizenship, because I have not traveled on my backpack. Tzachi, I don't know, I'm sure you and all your friends have, throughout Asia, or even been on any, island in Thailand. I've only gone there for business meetings to date, and many, many friends and colleagues, but it was all within a business framework. And by the way, that is, well, I said it jokingly, it's actually a very core component. It's the guanxi, as they say in Mandarin, which I don't speak fluently. But the word that always struck me is building strong, trusted relationships. That's how you close business. And I would, of course, love to hear how things work in Brazil, but I would imagine there's a similarity there as well. And so, the 5 years with Upbound Ventures, which was one of the first, if not the first, Israel-Asia platform, was designed to do that. In addition to working with entrepreneurs in a full array of industries and sectors, Israeli entrepreneurs, and closing with them commercial deals with enterprises in Asia Pacific or institutional investors, is understanding what it takes. Sometimes I flew out there for 36 hours because we had to close the deal and there was a miscommunication that was not going to be solved on email. And that actually was really quite an adventure. It came to the point, and I must mention, because he might even be on this call, but I credit a lot of our success to interns. The entrepreneur in me, especially at Upbound Ventures, small, lean team of employees. We had less than half a dozen employees, and at any given time. And yet, I always recruited interns. We had one, Rafael from Brazil. We had from China. We had from the United States. And when I was at university, that's how I gained a lot of experience. And I always feel that it's such a win-win when you onboard energetic, passionate young people who believe this will help them in their career, will give their all to be there for you. And if they prove themselves, let them run with it. I had that opportunity, and I think everyone is just the better for it. And my motto is always, you're in it, you are a full team member. No one was introduced as the intern or as the junior employee. They were introduced as a part of the team and had equal access to the CEOs we worked with, and to question them. And I think that empowerment, I hope, really helped them, because I think almost equally proud, throughout different things that I've accomplished, is the fact that with at least 4 of my former interns, I have continuously see them progress to different, up the career ladder, with strong recommendations that I gave them to, they're working at Goldman Sachs now, and they're working at a major venture capital fund. And I'm genuinely so delighted and satisfied with that, because I think that reflects just the bigger picture. So, it came to, again, a meeting point after 5 years, and I said, okay, do we grow? Perhaps we received an offer to join with a larger entity. What happens now? And really, as part of a conversation with the CEO of Nielsen Innovate, which is the only early stage fund whose LP is Nielsen, the mega consumer insights company. And they are a unique combination of early stage fund and incubator, which in Israel, just very briefly, you sort of have to win a tender to be headquartered of Jerusalem. Their particular headquarters are in Caesarea in the north, with also offices in Tel Aviv, but their headquarters there. And so their model is investing in late seed, early stage companies. And yet, because of the Nielsen name, while their investment mandate was only in a certain stage of retail, fintech, logistics, the entire spectrum of retail tech, they had no mechanism to work with these large corporates that came to Nielsen because of their name. So we had mega retailers from the US and Europe and Latin America and Southeast Asia. And so the CEO brought me on board to create this new program, this global corporate partner program, which I led, to work with their use cases, to take the best of what we have. That wasn't not only on the investment. If they wanted to join us as co-investors, that was one part. But if they wanted technology to identify, to address their use cases, that was something that I ran and thoroughly enjoyed. And then at the same time, or I should say about a year after that, one of the venture capital funds that I worked with in Hong Kong, Vector, who I just became, we worked very well together. They asked me to be their first Israeli-based venture partner. They had venture partners in the US and in Europe, but they'd never had one in Israel, and they understood the extraordinary deal flow here. And so until I joined Bangor University, BGU, I was proudly wearing both hats. And then, as they say, the pandemic came, and things changed for pretty much everyone, particularly companies and corporations who were set on visiting Israel and on engaging with innovation and conferences and meetings. And yes, many things were moved to Zoom, and yet other things came to a halt. And so, being the kind of person that prefers to be more busy than less busy, I realized there was not enough there, and yet it was a very bittersweet decision, because I don't have to state the obvious, but I will. It's all about the people. Whether you're investing them, whether you're partnering with them, whether you're employing them, whatever it is, it's about the people. And I so enjoyed the relationship I had and continue to have with the CEO of Nielsen Innovate Fund. I didn't want to let go. And he was like, Esther, things are changing. Also, Nielsen has undergone some major changes. So with that in mind, I guess with his blessing, things started to move pretty quickly. The long story, making it kind of short, is that within 2 weeks, I had an offer to work with one of the unicorn companies. Again, my comfort zone. I know this. I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I love it. I breathe it. Great people to create. Many, all the checklists, right? And this opportunity at a university a year ago, somebody told me, Esther, you'll be working for Israel. Left them out the door. Associated with bureaucracy and slow paced, and what happened was that I did my due diligence and getting a lot of feedback about this fastest growing university that is doing extraordinary applied research. And applied was very, very important to me, because I have respect for scientists, but not if they live in their ivory towers. I want to understand how it's going to impact your life, my life, industry. How do we bring academia? And in the 3 pillars in particular of sustainability and climate change, desert tech, the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev is in the Negev, which is the desert of Israel. That is the living, breathing lab for more than 52 years, where agrotech and renewable energy and water, wastewater treatment. I mean, I can just spend 2 hours speaking on each one. Cyber, which some of you may know, others perhaps not. I certainly didn't before I joined. Beersheba was designated in 2016 to be the cyber capital of Israel. And for a number of reasons. The cyber directorate of Israel Cyber Directorate moved down there. The 8200, which is the military intelligence unit, which many cyber entrepreneurs graduate from, moving down south. major corporations, Deutsche Telekom, Fujitsu, Lockheed Martin, they actually set up their cyber labs at VGU. They're only cyber labs outside of their own hometown in Germany or Japan. And the third one is health, digital health, and everything in between. Because adjacent to the university is Israel's second largest hospital, Soroka. So that kind of triangle of extraordinary research innovation, and the way I see it, innovation begins way before the R&D, right? It has to begin the really deep technology, the really deep research at the university level, is what attracted me and said, Esther, time again to leave your comfort zone and take those skills and experience that I've had and apply them to this university and bridging the academia and industry. And it's about investment in people, investment in education and research. And I continuously find extraordinarily exciting is really understanding, number one, this extraordinary entrepreneurship center that we have, which has programs by and for students. So we even have a fund, which I think you might even find interesting, called Cactus Capital. The name itself is fantastic, I believe. And it's a $1 million fund by students for students. They're the ones who are on the investment committee. They're the ones who identify which entrepreneurs. They're the ones who actually make the decision. And then there's another arm that actually teaches the elements of investment and how to become an analyst. And then we also have our deal flow element, which is an acceleration venture builder, where companies are formed from the extraordinary research. So there's so much going on, and that's just on the entrepreneurship center. There's also new vehicles, which I find fascinating. Again, coming from purely the private sector for all these years, the word impact is not a buzzword. It's a very real, strong, almost emotional connection where people want to know that what they're doing financially and otherwise will impact their community, their company, generate income. And the university actually formed the first of its kind in Israel, which has been initiated at Stanford and MIT, for instance, its first venture philanthropy vehicle, which combines the two and is an innovation fund focused on startups from these three pillars of sustainability, cyber, health, and yet is a venture philanthropy initiative. So a lot of things that I had not done before, and I'm going to wrap it up because I'm definitely want to hear from you guys more than I want to continue talking. What I see is just always pushing myself personally to understand where is the next, big opportunity. And you're all familiar with the Startup Nation. I really think the southern part of the country, the Negev, where 60% of the population lives, is the next frontier of the Startup Nation. And all of us, starting with those living in Israel, we think, oh, it's so far away. It's a 1 hour train ride. It's actually faster than being in a car from Tel Aviv. I just did it yesterday. And it's a world that is exciting, extraordinary, and it's from the desert to the world. So I am literally seeing for the last 10 months that I've been there, projects and innovations and companies that are taking that desert lab and being applied to multinationals and investors. So I'm going to wrap it up. Happy to answer questions, engage, and thank you so much for having me.
Esther, thank you so much. Amazing. I'm sure we could all hear your story for hours, and thank you for sharing it with us. So I would just like to remind the audience before we start with our Q&A that they can feel free to write any, and Maria Rita and I will be asking them. And I'll start with one question of my own. We talked a lot about, leaving your comfort zone and the This is obviously something that you did before coming to Israel, and even going there was sort of a gamble. But how do you think that being there with the Israeli mindset and all that, how did that help you, or, you know, show you how important it is to always leave your comfort zone?
But there's no doubt there are challenges. You know, even today, my children, I speak Hebrew fluently. Professionally, I only use English. And I have friends I only speak socially with in Hebrew. My kids will laugh at me 50 times a day with my accent, or I use the wrong gender. But I don't care. I enjoy the language. It doesn't bother me. I read in Hebrew. So number one, I think it's important to kind of really laugh at yourself aloud. And I do that pretty much every day. Have a healthy sense of humor. I also think what's really extraordinary, Israel is this microcosm of kind of a United Nations. You've got, I don't know, 50, 60 different, you know, nationalities. And at some point, everyone was an immigrant, if you will. And I mean, even today, what we're doing with, you know, absorbing Ukrainian refugees, and it's, I really feel privileged. My son just joined the army, which is extraordinary. I'm getting goosebumps just saying that, because he's my eldest, and it's huge pride, because there's a lot going on here, you know, and particularly what kept me on my 2-year experiment, our 2-year experiment of living in Israel. We're still here. Much of it is because of the innovation. The bigger picture question that I think you asked, yes, there are challenges. You know, there are challenges. Nothing is smooth, but I think letting go, connecting with people, not only being in your circle, but really being open. And these, you know, Israelis as a whole, and I consider myself Israeli, are very warm and very and want to help. And when it comes to business opportunities, and that's for sure. I mean, that was again what I kept uncovering when every time I started a new, you know, sort of track in my career, you know, and I said, hey guys, you know, we have this, we need to be in Bangkok for this conference. Okay, you know, we're there, or I connected with Singtel, or whatever it is. If there's an opportunity, you show the substance, you see that, you show the track, the value, you know, they get it very quickly. Again, much of this is learned. You know, I used to give many presentations in different parts of Southeast Asia on, because we think everyone understands what the Startup Nation is, but they did not. And so I talked about what brings this mindset, right? The Army, a lot of it in terms of this, you know, don't take no for an answer, the entrepreneurship mindset, the leading by example, right? And academia, huge part of this story, of the success story that is Nation's Startup Nation, right? So I'm probably answering your question much longer than you anticipated, but
No,
I'm so passionate about it. So I'm gonna drag you guys over here.
No, it was really great. And people, please send your questions here for us also. I and Nicole have so many, but it's much more interesting to hear what you want to ask us. And I want to make the next one, because part of what you were talking about remembered me when I was hiring Brenda. A lot of people that are from Anjos, Brazil with me. And it's all about communication. You talked a lot about that, about the narrative, about communication. And what I want you to help the entrepreneurs that are here, and also the investors, how they can use this to stand out. Because we know, we as investors, there's just so many investors, the money is in, we have to be different, and also the entrepreneurs. So can you give us some tips how they can use?
First of all, I'm a big believer in the elevator pitch. The elevator pitch, the 30-second max one, is an excellent tool. So many brilliant people. You'll see them at a cocktail party, well, now post-COVID, or, you know, or you're actually literally in the elevator and you say, what does your company do? And by the time they are able to communicate it, you're already out the door. And that is a lost opportunity. So it goes back to, as you said, Maria, the communications, the narrative, but in a very succinct, energized way. It's combining the pragmatic and the passion. I always say, you know, if you have an entrepreneur that is just giving you the stats, and there's no passion behind it, then why should I be interested in joining your company as an investor, right? And yet, if you're just hubris and you're just, storytelling without substance, then it's not going to go anywhere. You need that combination. You need the data. You need the understanding. Most importantly, you need to know your customer. It's always KYC. Who is your customer? I don't care about your amazing, brilliant technology. If it's not going to provide value, then it's not serving anything. And it's delivering that. And it's practice. I tell people all the time, I have given hundreds of presentations all over the world in English, my native language, and I practice. I practice for today. I never take my audience for granted. I think it's very important to prepare, and always give yourself less time than you think you have, because at some point an investor will say, I said an hour, you have 30 minutes. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to have 5 slides in your head or visually? Storytelling. What is the value? Who is your customer? What is your go-to-market? How are you going to make money? And then the follow-on questions will happen. So I can never overstate preparation.
I totally agree. I think it's really that. And you said something that for me, it's really a key. Never take your audience for granted. You have to understand and to make a connection to the people. It's so great. Nicole, you are the next. So
yeah, we have a question in the chat, but just continuing what you were talking about, we actually see sort of an issue here in Brazil, with the language barrier. And in a lot of the more technological sectors, not so much, but in agri-tech and water and government, sometimes we do have a problem with this. And how have you overcome this with time? In Asia, I imagine it's similar, but probably not as bad.
And I'm sorry, was it about time?
A language barrier with English, being used.
My experience, because I did have that apprehension when I started working with so many different countries in Asia Pacific, is that the sophisticated players, whether they're seasoned angel investors, whether enterprise, heads of innovation, the decision makers, they're all, English is the language. They understand. Now, on the one hand, I think at one point in our lives, Spanish, which, I'm not sure Portuguese, Spanish, but Mandarin, they're critical. You've got 1 billion people in the world. I think it's extraordinarily valuable for us and almost mandatory. Until we're there, they understand their customers and partners are in the West. And so most of them are either alumni of Western education, have worked in, Morgan Stanley, there's almost, believe it or not, and this is what I also thought was fascinating, and I'd love to hear about the Brazilian ecosystem. Asia Pacific is a massive region, and each country has its own culture, and yet the investment group as a whole is a small world. I've been to conferences in Hong Kong and met, venture capitalists in Thailand, and I connected through my business, and it's really a 1 degree separation. This hedge fund sits on that, LP sits on that board. It sounds crazy because it's such a massive region. So, number one, English has always been there. In terms of time, Israelis, and again, as an Israeli, I'm speaking, we make ourselves available. I don't even look at the time. I have calls at 5 a.m. I work with Australia. I work with now especially, and then people are used to speaking to California time, and that's 10 hours later. So the time zone is not really an issue. We're taking into consideration, we want to have quality time with our families. We don't want to. We've learned to maximize that, and say, we need to be on a conference call this hour, we'll be there, and then we'll be with our kids at soccer practice or whatever. So that's kind of the answer.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we see that with our Israeli partners that, they're available feeding their kids, doing this and that, but, always available for a good business opportunity.
No, this is great. And I just want to, before I do the next question for the audience, I just want to share with you something about the language. And it was an Israeli entrepreneur that said that to me, and I use it all the time. He said to me, I speak the most spoken language in the world, bad English. So you can do, just go there and speak. And this for me is exactly how the Israeli people think. I will go there and do. If it's about English, it's about English, and that's fine. And sometimes here in Brazil, we just want to be perfect. We don't
No. In fact, I couldn't agree with you more, because in a way, that's how I approach my Hebrew. You know, I will go full storm, and especially when I yell in Hebrew, I know I've arrived, because, you know. But I think it's the engagement. If you have a story to tell, it's not about precision. It really isn't, because it's about the facts and the passion and building that connection. And you are so right. It is so not about the grammar or saying it in precisely the right way.
Perfect. And now we have a lot of questions from our audience. So I will do the first. Michelle asks you, she says, with an increasing focus on ESG matters by big listed companies, do you see partnerships with these big players as an opportunity for your startups?
Absolutely. Literally last night, I was at an event where one of the top 3 energy companies presented, and they divided what their areas of interest were, and they're hungry for startups. They're hungry for partnerships that will yield the next thing before the competitors. And it was interesting, because he came to me and he said, you know, I'd love to understand what an academic partnership would look like. What are your startups? What's your deal flow? We spent just a half hour speaking about that. And he's like, please let me know, how can we actually dictate the next cohort, so that our use cases will define, you know, the next batch of accelerators, which feeds into what they're looking. So it's a win-win, right? You want to get the smartest minds, you want to get them thinking, working on projects that most apply to your company. And so absolutely, it's a very natural, and it's happening more and more.
Great. Now we have another question, Ayla, and she asks, Brazil and Israel have the same climate situation, which turn agricultural commodities in our countries. And her question is if Israel, and I guess specifically BGU, is investing in the space sector for solutions for Earth.
So there are many kind of aspects to that question, and I'm going to break it down in a brief way. We actually, believe it or not, you might have followed the recent SpaceX NASA mission, which just landed yesterday after a delay. So one of the first Israeli astronaut, or I should say the second Israeli astronaut, he actually went into space they were doing many experiments, one of which is actually from our Neuro Hub at BGU, where sensors were on, not just on him, but on 2 other astronauts, including the mission commander, to monitor their brain activities in space, and will be continuing for a week after they landed to understand changes in space. Now, directly addressing the climate issue, but I'll get to that in a second. And he, on his own, because of business that he after his tenure as a pilot in the Air Force, went out to do business in Africa and Angola, he actually supports and funds scholarships for Africans to come to BGU to learn about sustainability, so that they can take the tools that they learned to practically apply to their communities and villages in Africa. And then we have a whole space, She Space, which is about female empowerment and STEM education, and attracting, again, girls, high school girls from all over the world. We hope maybe you can send us some from Brazil, to collaborate and learn about different satellites. And I can't even go into all the details here, but doing, you know, fantastic stuff in space. I'll spend a minute talking on the sustainability and climate. And it's a huge subject, and we have a whole section. Again, I didn't even know any of this before I joined, but so Ben-Gurion was Israel's first prime minister. He is buried in a place about 45 minutes south of Beersheba called Sde Boker. And Stable Care is not only his archives and where he's buried with his wife, but it is the Desert Institute Research, the Institute for Desert Research, that has become world renowned. And that is where we have the Water Institute, and we have the Agriculture and Institute, and the energy, and they're working on practical solutions that governments and industry are to. In fact, before call, the British ambassador and about what is going on, what solutions that have to do not just with land, only those who live in the desert, you know, but it's also climate. So there's a whole, I'm not sure how that, and I can't.
No, it was really great, and this is what I love about the best audience. They go for different places that we didn't, so it was great. I can say that I make before from the question and your answer. Very nice to hear that. We have one more here that I will say to you. It's from Sylvia. She's thanking you for your wonderful talk. She has been working with pitches for 5 years, especially for academic startups at Unifesp. And she's saying, in Brazil, I watch a very good pitches, but at the end, it's only superficial marketing made by a very well-trained communicator. She's asking if you have the same kind of experience to share. And I thought I would just add something to her question, because when I see pitches from university, usually I don't see that. I don't see marketing. I just see people talking about their research. So if you can explain from your previous experience what you see for people that are just very good communicators, and now when you are close to the university, what are the difference? What are you seeing?
So I've seen, I think I've pretty much seen it. I've seen it all. I've seen a lot. I've seen people who feel if they can, you know, sell ice to Eskimos, they can sell you their idea. But if goes back to there's no substance, you're going to lose. Anyone, you want a smart investor on your team, don't waste their time. You know, don't be stupid. Sorry, you know, just be smart and take the time and bring value. So I actually, you know, I've seen almost the reverse more. I've seen, because Israel has some really deep technologists, and that's where they often start, the CTO, you know, they have this idea, they've got the technology, and they don't know how to communicate it. They're all about the nitty-gritty of the technology, which is not how you first present it. Again, it goes back to what is the value, what problem are you solving, what's unique, what's your go-to-market, etc., all the business aspects. So I've seen that more. And I think what I was really impressed, I was at a demo day a couple of months ago for our accelerator, which is called Oasis. And I was, after 5 months, I saw the extraordinary difference. Because of the mentors, because of the program. And I think that's what helps, at least those coming out of academia. If you have a structure that's akin to what's in the, you know, non-academic world, but that is there designed to help researchers who are brilliant but are not business savvy communicate. And also perhaps if you've got something that will address a huge problem, but you are not the business person, let's match you with a business person. So that all helps with the pitch, obviously, because it is about the team. It's not about how you're going to execute, how you're going to execute an idea if you don't have the right team, right?
Oh, great. Before I pass to you, Nicole, I have one more question related to that to Esther. If you can talk a little bit about the TTO, the transfer technology offices, I think it will be great for people that are related to research universities. And I saw some very good experiences in Israel. And I think that they sometimes can close the gap between the researchers and the market. So if you can talk a little bit about about your experience.
Absolutely.
And then Nicole can do the next question, please.
It's interesting because prior to joining, and I had some experience working with tech transfer, and I know from the VC side, there's always been, I shouldn't say always, but there's often been a hesitancy to invest in companies where the IP is with the tech transfer department. And, you know, whether true or not, or partially, I've been on the side where investors like, I don't want to touch it. There's too many complications. And at the end of it all, I don't know who owns the IP, and I don't know here, and I don't know that. I can't speak for other institutions. I know that in the last year and a half, I was just sitting, we have a whole, so the tech transfer is its own company within the university called BGN. And I know I spoke with the CEO just recently. It's been undergoing this huge transition where it's about, there's not one size fits all. We want to create these industry academic collaborations, whether it's the kind of a multinational like a Deutsche Telekom, you know, multi-year, whether it's about investing in one of the startups, whether it's about a project that you have a use case, basically, and that's what I love, because that's the entrepreneurial part of reimagining or looking at tech transfer. It's not doing business the way it's always done, because it hasn't always been successful in terms of bringing the private sector. And I saw it from the private sector side. And so I didn't come up with this. I'm delighted that he and the president, because I heard him speak about this as well. That's the idea, is we want to create more startups. We want to create more jobs. We want to create more opportunities. It's starting with academia, but it's ending in the private sector. We need to create that bridge. And just as an interesting sort of visual, physical, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of a visual image of it. First of all, I invite you all to come, and when, not if, but when you do come, and it's very convenient, you come off the train and there's a university stop. So you're actually into the university. You can go over one bridge, and that's 5 minutes, you're actually on campus. You go to the right, the other bridge, and it's the Advanced Tech Park. And that's where the company, the multinationals, and the cyber unit, and, you know, and so the physical bridge, actually, they're minutes away from each other. So you have the academia and industry almost physically, you know, being bridged.
Awesome. And still on this subject of this bridge, Ejmo would like to know when the best time would be to gather investors and visit both Israeli startups and projects that bridge academic initiatives and the market.
Almost any time, but always good to, you know, we have so many things going on. I know I personally have put together, I have a group of investors representing, because they all know each other and I know each of them from the US, from the UK, and I'm creating a half a day, you know, investor day for them. And so, you know, give us a few weeks notice, and also within the industry. So I also believe in smart networking. And so even if it's not directly related, because again, my more than less of my experience comes from the investment world and the corporate world, I have a number of relationships, and I just believe it makes sense on a business level to connect people where it makes sense. And so it doesn't matter if it's not related directly to my, you know, focal point or where I am. If it makes sense, I'm always happy to make those connections. I think everyone benefits.
And I can answer to Ejmo also. The best time will be in September with Anjos do Brasil delegation. We are
okay. Please let me know.
And I'm hoping to see this all these bridges also. Last time we went to the Negev, it was amazing to see all the work that you are doing that. And by what you are talking to me right now, I think that there was a really big increase. And so, Ejmo, stay tuned. We are going to start to promote our next delegation very soon.
Fantastic. I look forward to welcome you. And literally, I think, and again, I see myself as an extension of you, extension of people I speak with, you know, in Australia, in the UK, in South Africa, who, you know, they need that kind of innovation and yet don't yet know. And when I'm blown away pretty much every day. And so I am looking forward to hosting you and engaging with you. So please, as soon as you've got your dates, just let me know.
Perfect. I'm not sure if I lose any other questions. Nicole, there is another from the audience or not?
Yes, there's the last question from Indianara. I'll read it for you. She's a startup hunter and talks to entrepreneurs every day. And really most of the speeches she sees are marketing. So she wants to know, in your view of a business at an early stage, what matters most as a form of evaluation? The undevelop a solution or the degree of innovation proposed?
Big
question.
Okay, let me try to answer it very briefly. There has to be a problem. You know, to have a solution without a problem is not really valuable. So it's identifying there's an issue, there's a tangible market, right? What is the TAM? What is the total addressable market? And understanding what your stake is. So you're going to get an investor's attention or a partner's attention by understanding there's an opportunity for something. Now, it doesn't have to be a unicorn. You know, Alan Petrikoff, who's one of the godfathers of venture capital, and I worked with him a lot in the past. And he's like, most exits will be 30, 50 million in that range. And that's respectable. So there's all kinds, but number one is there has to be some kind of problem you're addressing or something that, and there has to be an innovation aspect to it. Otherwise, you know, what's going to prevent others from beating you to it or from overtaking you? So there has to be something unique, and that USP, that unique selling point, that unique differentiation is usually innovation, is usually a deep technology, and it's not fluff, right? So I hope that's the brief answer to the question.
No, it's great. We don't have a lot of time for the next questions, but I will just say to Thelma, if you want to show your business, you can connect to the Israel Trade through Nicole, and they do this job in a wonderful way. So connect to them, and they will help you very much. For people that are asking me how they can know more about the delegation that we are going in September, you can see in our website, there is a page there. You can put your name there, and then we are going to give you all the information for that. So I want to bring Tsahi back here to our virtual stage, just to thank you so much, Esther. It was really, really great. And I'm sure that we are going to meet again, presently in September in Israel. But thank you so much for having the time to talk to us. It was really amazing, very nice to know more about you and what you are doing there. Thank you so much.
Toda rabba. Again, it was super interesting, and thank you for sharing your story. I think we all learned a lot from this, and we're looking forward to continuing to engage.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Tsahi. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone. It was really a pleasure to join, and please come to Israel. I will be here and happy to welcome you.
Thank you, Esther. And we also look forward to having you come to Brazil.
Yes, that is definitely on my to-do list. Definitely on my to-do list.
Perfect.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.